mostly it's end-to-end testing with Python Selenium. So we're going to look at the different things that you can do with Selenium, not just web scraping, not just getting data, but also for today specifically, it's just automating the whole testing process. This can be one of the processes that you look at throughout the whole system testing process. And my name is Victoria Chirotish Mutai. I'm a software engineer and managing partner at one of the big innovation hubs in Eldoret called the Cube Hub, where we just think outside the box but inside the cube. And I am so happy to be here.
Hi everyone. Hello. Hello. It's okay. Good. My name is Pauline Gechure. I am a data scientist and I'm also a mentor based in Nairobi, and I'm happy to be here. And today we are just going to do a quick overview of testing with Selenium. And basically, we're just going to look at the architecture, an overview of the different drivers that we have, and we'll also have, we had a demo, but we have the snippets of the demo, so we're also going to have that today. So one of the things will be, what is the point, or what is end-to-end testing with Selenium? So in short, it's E2E. And the whole idea is just to ensure that there's comprehensive testing. So what it does is it makes sure that the entire process from the back-end systems to the front-end system, everything works harmoniously and as expected, and the entire application or system is working as expected. So the business processes will not be interfered with at any point in time. Secondly, it is a very good way of simulating real-world situations because the users are going to use it in the real world. So testing out with Selenium is one of the very good ways of ensuring that you're testing the functionality and the usability of the tool or the process or the application that you're creating. And then lastly and thirdly, it helps to identify issues early and in advance. So this is a proactive approach to ensure that you're not catching these particular issues after deployment or after users are already using the application or the system, but you've actually identified these issues and solved them before you deploy it out. So the other reason as to why it's important, one, at the end of the day, you're going to have a very, you're going to release a product that doesn't have defects or has minimal effects. And solved most of the issues that you are anticipating the users to face. And then thirdly, in the development cycle, if there are any new bugs that are going to pop up, you are going to catch them. So at the end of the day, you're minimizing any regressions or any issues that you might have. So this just makes sure that even your development is fastened. And then lastly, as a developer, you're going to be very confident in the product that you're going to release, and that is very key because now if you've used end-to-end testing with Selenium, then you're confident of the stability, usability, and any other factor that you'd want to ensure is covered. So that's a very key important thing as to why end-to-end testing is important. So it has different architectures to it. So one of them is the web drivers. So this one is, it's a component that helps communicate to the different browsers through APIs. So at the end of the day, you are going to, this is going to help you send the different commands that you'd want. So if you'd want to send a click or a navigate to this URL, this is the driver that's going to help you communicate with that. And then secondly, we have the browser drives. So each and every single browser will have its own different drive. So Chrome, Firefox, Safari, they all have different drives. And these drives now help translate the web driver commands to browser-specific action points. And then lastly, you're going to have the test scripts that you'd want to automate the interactions and validate the specific behaviors that you'd want. So Here we're going to use Python specific scripts or any other language that you're working with, you can use that. And the whole idea is just to automate the steps that you'd want to perform on the application or the tool that you're coming up with. And here's where Selenium comes in to help simulate the entire interaction by ensuring that it's driving the browser through the scripts and it's testing out the different functionality that you'd want to have. So here I'd want Victoria to pick it up on setting up the Python and Selenium environment.
I believe most of you, because we are in the PyCon conference, have Python installed on their laptops. Yes? Yes? Oh, that's perfect. So once you have Python installed, to install Selenium is very simple. Just the same way you install other modules, you're just going to do the simple pip install Selenium, and that adds Selenium into your project. And I'd advise, because now with the changes in the versioning of the different softwares, ensure that you're installing Selenium inside the virtual environment by doing the Python -m, then virtual environment. Then after that, you're going to import all the necessary drivers. So the most important drivers that we have from Selenium is the WebDriver, and then these other modules like by, WebDriver, wait, and expected conditions is just supposed to help us during the whole process of implementing this automation, this test. So initially in the previous versions of Selenium, you had to download the drivers for the different files. For example, if you're using Chrome, you'd have to download the drivers for Chrome. If you're using Safari, you'd have to download the driver for Safari. But with the upgrades, we're just going to import the WebDriver and we'll be able to call the right driver. Before we go into this, just an FYI, every time that you're working on Selenium, once you upgrade your browser version, once Chrome automatically updates them, in most cases you find a Selenium error because you haven't updated your Selenium. So one thing that you have to keep doing when you're working with Python and Selenium, keep updating Selenium as often as you can so that you just avoid the errors with Chrome or any other browser. So for writing your first test case with Selenium is so easy. The first one, you just import the modules that we have there. I have, like the previous screenshot had all the drivers that you're supposed to import. Next, you initialize the WebDriver, and by creating an instance of your desired browser, this is where you mention Chrome or Safari or Firefox. Next, you are going to ask the Selenium to perform the specific actions that you want. For example, if you're supposed to check if the language is working or if the buttons are working so well. And then once that is done, as he had mentioned earlier, you are supposed to assert the expected behavior or state. For example, in our case, we have the login. Once the user enters the username and password, you expect to have login successful and then navigates to the next page. Or if it doesn't do that, there is going to be an error message saying login failed, check your username, or when they're registering, create your account to be based on specific conditions. So that's where you just assert the expected behavior or state. So this was part of the demo. It's just a snippet of how Selenium works. Very simple. It's a function for testing login. As you can see, it's just test login. And one of the proper ways I know we all know for writing tests is just like test underscore whatever that function does. Yeah. So this test login requires our user to enter the username and password. Then once they have that, we're going to call an instance of the WebDriver, an instance of Chrome, which is WebDriver.chrome. And then just for good learning practices, you can just like log the information that we are starting the test for the specific user To access the browser URL, you are just going to put it there. Sorry, that's localhost, but any browser URL, for example, if it's x.com or any other browser. And then after that, good practice is just like log the information on the login. Next, you need to, I just did the time to sleep just to show you that you can actually make the script wait so that once it opens the login page, it can wait for a specific amount of time so that the whole page logs in. And then the most important part here is finding the element. With Selenium, it's so easy. We all have tried the HTML, CSS, JavaScript in web. So if it's the HTML, this is just the specific IDs that you had on your code. If it's the username, we have it by the ID username. So to find that specific element, because Selenium uses our elements, our HTML, CSS elements. To find the specific element, if it's an ID, you do by ID. If it's a class name, you do by .class_name. And then, so this is not a good practice for beginners, but I did the send keys. Send keys basically tells Selenium tells the browser, once you get that ID with username, just send these keys with the username. So that ideally is, it just lets you, instead of having to type the username that the user had provided on the test is what goes there. And then that is the same for password. So you just send the keys, that ideally type those keys. So you just send the keys. And then once that is done, the next part is finding the element for login. This is, if it's not a code that you have written, you can just inspect on your browser and find that specific ID. And then using the ID or the class name. Preferably, I like using ID because of the uniqueness. You can't have a lot of elements in the same ID. So by ID, the login button, and then ask it to click. It's so simple, just the normal operations. Click like the same way you open the browser, enter your username, enter your password, and click on login. That's exactly how Selenium does. It just imitates the browser interactions the same way as humans do it. Then after that, the next thing, for this one, what was happening on this HTML page was the user had to put their username and password, and once they click on login, it takes them to the dashboard where it's written, welcome to PyCon Uganda. This was just a demo. So to do that, we have the WebDriver wait. This WebDriver wait helps us to wait till an element appears. So for example, in this case, it tells the driver to wait for 5 seconds, 5 seconds, until we see the element with the text, the element H4 with the text, welcome to PyCon Uganda 2024. So what this wait does, I'm sure Pauline is going to talk about it in the next slide. What this wait does, it tells the driver, wait for 5 minutes, 5 seconds, until there's a presence of welcome to PyCon Uganda, a specific H4, which has the welcome to PyCon Uganda. Once that is done, we log the information, the dashboard page is loaded, and then we close the driver. So this is ideally how tests work. Most test cases are just going to be like this. It's just the browser interactions that are going to change. So always make sure that you keep logging whatever you're doing, either if it's an information or if it's an error. If it's an error, also log it so that after all this, you open your log files, you're going to find all this data, and it's going to be very informative if this is actually doing whatever you want your user to do. So yeah, that's on the test case.
Thank you, Victoria. So what I'm going to cover next, she's covered that in depth, but this is more of like packaging it. So she's covered an overview of the web drivers APIs. So first, as she's mentioned, is finding the different elements. So trying to locate whichever component that you'd like to work with. and there are different ways of going about it. So we've done two ways, if you've taken note, by the ID and also by the path. And also you can also use by the specific name, the class name as well. So those are the different ways you can find the specific element that you'd want to work with. And then perform the specific action that you'd want. So here we are explaining or trying to simulate the exact interaction that the user is going to do. So here in our example, we did have the logging in and clicking the login button. So element.click would be the specific action that we'd want to look out for. And then thirdly is the assertions. And assertions, they just help us verify that everything is working as we expect it to. And it's going to be displayed on that particular page. So you can have something as assert dashboard in driver title, and that will give you the exact assertion that you're looking for. And then lastly is the waiting strategies, which we're also going to cover briefly. And what's going to happen with the waiting strategies. We've seen the other one, wait for 5 seconds. And what this does is it just helps ensure that everything is working as expected, because there are different reasons why waiting is important. Because one, there's always dynamic content on the different modern browsers that we have, and it's loading different content all the time. And it's dynamic content, so there are different techniques, and some of these elements appear after some time, and some appear after certain actions. So having the wait strategies is one of the helpful things. And then also page loading timings are also different depending on the network speeds and server response time and different factors. And lastly, also trying to avoid flaky tests, because now with waiting strategies, the tests don't account for loading times that are essential for you to look at to ensure it doesn't fail inconsistently. So there are different types of waitings. There is the implicit waiting, explicit, and fluent waiting. So when we cover implicit waiting, this is the global timeout for finding whatever element that you're trying to look for. And what happens here is it's going, okay. What's happening here is it's going to look out for specifically whichever element that you'd want to have it. And then the next one is the explicit waiting. So this one will target a very specific condition or action or anything specific that you'd want to test it out. And this is more of a niche compared to the implicit waiting. And then there's the fluent waiting, which is more customized, a more customized polling way of polling without any timeout or without any intervals between the different tests that you'd want to do. So the other thing that happens is we'll be working a lot with forms and browser actions, and there are different ways of going about it. So there's the form interaction, browser navigation, and then there is the window and tab handling. So the first one, which is the form interactions, here you're going to fill out the specific fields that you are working with, and it can, and also select the drop downs and also submit the different forms. Also, you can be working with different URLs, so either going backward or forward, or trying to refresh it or open it on a new tab. And lastly is the tab handling. So here you're going to be switching between multiple browsers or multiple tabs, and this is also one of the very good ways of doing it as well. I'd want to give it back to Victoria at this point.
Yeah, so we've seen a lot of things that Pauline has gone through, and I think our demo is still in our head, in our mind. What type of waiting did we use? What type of waiting did we use? Do you want to still look at it? What type of wait did we use here? Louder. Someone said the correct answer, but they're not willing to say it loud. What type of wait? Explicit. Yeah, that's explicit wait, where we wait until there's the presence of an element located. Yes? Perfect. Now we can go back to the best practices. So some of the best practices for using Selenium is organizing your test code. I'd want to think every day when we wake up in the morning, the first thing that we do is probably open our eyes. Yeah? So when you are organizing, just think about the daily process. If a user opens today the PyCon Uganda page and they want to buy a ticket. So what happens when they load the page? It goes to that beautiful page where there are various places to navigate on. And then also there's that buy ticket option there. So when they click on buy ticket, they're going to be taken to another page. So when you're thinking about writing test code, think about the first process that a user is going to encounter. Write test step by step so that even when you're debugging it, it's going to be so simple. You're going to just go to that specific test code, specific action that you are expecting. Also, when you're naming the functions, the test code, always remember this, so it's test underscore or test, and then camel case. This test is going to do this and this. So this test is going to log in, so that becomes test underscore login. This is going to buy tickets, test underscore buy tickets. So that's how you organize your test code. So you can use the page object model and make, ensure modularity. Don't write a whole test to just test everything, because that's a possibility, but I can imagine 2 weeks from now going back to your code, that is going to be hectic. So modular code design. And then weight strategies. Look at what works for you. A very bad use case of the implicit weight was when I did the time.sleep. Not a good strategy, but yeah, does something. So look at the ways you're going to use the weight strategies. Either the bad one, using time.sleep, or using the WebDrivers to wait until a specific condition is met. So ensure that you have an in-depth understanding of the weight strategies that you're going to use and how it's going to work for you. Integrating it with PyTest. PyTest is one of the largest testing framework, and to make this work for you, just learn how to integrate Selenium with PyTest. And I think on the GitHub repo that we're going to share, you're going to find more use cases, and we are also going to keep adding more, so you can keep checking. And the last one is generating reports. Logging. It's important to log into a document so that a few days, a few years from now, you can look back and know this is what the results look like. And that's the end. We are happy to answer your questions for the next 5 minutes before they kill us. No, 2 minutes, 1 minute.
I already gave red.
Okay.
Allow one question.
Okay, one question.
There's no question.
No question?
Yeah.
Thank you so much for listening to us. You can look for us around the location or reach out to us on our LinkedIn pages, Victoria Mutai and
Pauline Gechure.
thank you so much. Have a good rest of the day.